What's happening, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Crossed Up. I'm Bob Wankel. Anthony Sanfilippo is here, and the Phillies, fresh off of a 3-game sweep of the St. Louis Cardinals, 14 games over 500, a season best 14 games over 500, creating a little separation in the National League wild card. And I feel like for the first time this season, everyone is feeling really good about the Phillies, Anthony. Like, really good. Everyone's starting to, smell October a little bit. They're hitting. They were timely situationally yesterday. Aaron Nola was outstanding. It's all coming up Phillies right now. So here we are, and I guess let's get your impressions of what was an outstanding week of baseball for this Phillies team.
Yeah, it was a really good week, Bob. And we had talked on Friday. We didn't, I had suggested that this weekend I was more skeptical of a sweep this weekend than I would have been for the upcoming series against the Angels. And the skepticism was from the fact that as bad as the Cardinals pitching has been, they at least have a good lineup. They at least hit well. And then the Phillies limited them to 3 runs in 3 games. And it was each start was better than the next. I mean, Sanchez was really good on Friday. Wheeler was even better on Saturday. And Nola was even better on Sunday. I mean, it was just really good job by the starting staff. And in 2 of the games, the lineup was just off the charts good. And then yesterday, yes, Schwarber gets a leadoff home run to start the game, but then they manufactured runs, Bob, and that was kind of an important thing, right? I mean, you heard Topper talk about it after the game. It was funny, like you were sitting right behind me in the press room, and we had talked about it when it happened. Rojas gets that double, and then Schwarber has a productive out, moving him to third, and he scores on a sac fly. And you had said to me just how important that was. You see that they're able to do that because they usually don't. And then he wasn't even asked about it. Topper just brings it up himself in the press conference. And I looked at you like even the manager is noticing when they do those things, right? So yes, it was every little thing that they needed to do right. They did right this weekend, and then even mostly in the Giants series, with the exception of the one loss. But I mean, we weren't expecting to win every game. So 5 out of 6 against the Giants and the Cardinals, and then they wrap up the long month of home games here in August this week against the Angels. Phillies are starting to get some separation, and yes, they are starting to kind of come together and gel at the right time, just as you're approaching September and October.
Yeah, and you know what I think yesterday for me was the most encouraging of the 3 games, which sounds kind of ridiculous because they have 11 hits. They only score 3 runs. They missed a bunch of opportunities to bust the game open early. But I do like the fact that they were able to execute at different points situationally. Like, I go back to the 5th inning, and you get that Rojas double. You get Schwarber at the plate. And we've talked about this previously. He's not really a guy. Like, if I have one true criticism of Kyle Schwarber at the top of the order, it's that he doesn't typically play the game situationally. He's not a guy that you usually rely on to move a runner over with a productive at bat. It really is boom or bust with him, or walk. And so to see him be able to make that type of contact, pull side, takes a sinker early in the count, rolls it over, gets a runner to third base, like that's the type of stuff you need to do in October to win games, as Rob noted. And yes, like certainly the home runs this month, that's the most encouraging thing of all. Offensively, they look like a much deeper, much more formidable lineup, and that's what's going to draw the headlines and get everybody excited. But be able to bear down and do those little things on top of it, like that has me excited from an offensive standpoint. And all of a sudden here, like you look up and they're knocking at the door of being a top 10 offense. And I tweeted it after the game on Saturday night. When they got to the end of play on July 26th, they were 17th in baseball in runs per game. And right now they're sitting right on the edge of being a top 10 offense in run production. It's been a huge jump this month. It's happened because of the long ball, and we've been waiting to see it, and that's great. But man, these little things, they kind of get lost sometimes. And I'm telling you, it's a big deal.
No, it really is. And that's what's going to win you games in the playoffs, right? So every game that you play in the playoffs, you're facing pretty good pitching. or likely going to face pretty good pitching. I would say 90% of the games you play in the playoffs are against, a good pitcher. So in essence, your runs per game are likely to come down just a hair, just because of the level of pitching that you're going to face, and for everybody, not just the Phillies. So what it's going to come down to is when you are getting runs, you have to, or have opportunities to get runs, you're going to have to scratch them out sometimes. Yes, the home runs are awesome, and they're going to come, and you're going to have some big postseason home runs as well. But you are going to need a run like that in the postseason, right? I mean, you're going to have a guy on second with nobody out and be like, you know what? We don't need to hit a home run here. We just need that run. If we get the home run, great, but let's try and get the run. And if it means having a productive out, then have a productive out. And that's okay. And that's good baseball. And I think that, the Phillies are starting to do that with a little bit more regularity, a little bit, I say, because it's not been every game. But when you start to see it happen on a somewhat more consistent basis, it tells you that they're a little bit more locked in, not necessarily locked in to be an offensive juggernaut, but locked in on what the task at hand is. And that's the most important thing when you're getting into this time of season.
Yeah, and before we get too much deeper into this show, I guess I need to stop and just say, listen, the Cardinals stink. They have packed it in. Their pitching is dreadful. So the fact that the Phillies scored, what did it end up being? 22 runs over 3 games against a bad Cardinals pitching staff. Like, I don't want to get carried away here. This is a team that they did beat the Giants 2 out of 3. That's a nice job, but they just had lost 2 out of 3 to the Nationals. They split with Toronto. They had lost 2 out of 3 at home to the Twins. Like, if you go big picture and stretch this out over the past week or two, it's not like they're playing unbelievably awesome baseball. And because they're 5-1 on this homestand, because they're coming off a sweep, we're going to come out here today and we're going to be really positive. And I think we should be really positive about the overall direction and feel of things. But while we're going to do that, I guess we should acknowledge, or I should acknowledge that, listen, it's not like they're playing at 107 win pace here either. There still are some flaws and things, but I think today really is a day to sort of focus on what we saw this weekend and try to accentuate some of the positives. Like, I know that people, they tend to get a little carried away when things are not going well. This team stinks. If they can't beat the Nationals 2 out of 3, they're not a playoff team. So by the same token, I don't want to come out and say, well, they just destroyed the Cardinals. Like, let's start planning the parade. But I got to tell you, like, there's 2 things here. You look at the pitching staff, and one of the things I've been harping on lately is that the offenses looked better, but I haven't had a great feeling about what I've seen from a pitching standpoint. It just hasn't been as sharp. It hasn't been as crisp. I think that there's some concerns in that rotation. There have been some lingering issues in the bullpen here for the last 4 to 6 weeks or so. But this weekend, 27 innings pitched, 10 hits allowed, 3 earned runs allowed, 3 walks, all came yesterday, 34 total strikeouts across 3 games. And say what you will about the Cardinals, but they do have some decent offensive parts. It was a dominant effort by this Phillies pitching staff, both starters and relievers this weekend.
Yeah, it really was. And that's, look, Bob, when you look at the Phillies, and I was just kind of glancing at it this morning, right, as I'm sitting here eating breakfast, and I was just kind of like looking at, pitching statistics, just for kicks, and just looking around, just kind of looking for something interesting. And if you really look at it, like, they are a whip dynamo in a lot of ways. I mean, you have guys, if you talk about whips under 1.2. Well, 1.2 is not like lights out, but it's pretty darn good, okay? So whips under 1.2. Nola, Wheeler, Sanchez, Kimbrel, Strom, Soto, Hoffman, Alvarado, Lorenzen, all under 1.2. And that's, so, like, you just named like almost the entire rotation and 5 bullpen guys. And so, like, when they're at their peak and when they're pitching like this, they're a tough out, man. They're tough to beat. They're in every game. Really, look, if you go back through the season, and I didn't do this, but I'm just, off the top of my head, how many games are the Phillies not in? They've had a few games where they've been blown out. I mean, it happens every team.
No, that's why it feels like every loss is a bad loss because it's not,
Yes.
well, they just didn't have it today. They got their doors blown off. What are you going to do? Every loss is if they would have done one or two things, they would have won this game, which is a testament, I think, overall to the brand that they're playing, which is what you're talking about.
Exactly.
And to your point on WHIP, the Phillies are actually 6th in Major League Baseball this season in WHIP. Only the Dodgers and Brewers in the National League have been better, and then Minnesota, Tampa Bay, and Seattle are 1, 2, and 3. So when you look across the board, I mean, that definitely stands out. Of course, we're sort of burying the lead here, and that is Aaron Nola. And look, I've been critical of Aaron Nola. I think that there are people out there that have been significantly more critical of Aaron Nola than me.
Deservedly so this season.
Yes.
Deservedly so.
I will tell you yesterday, it was obviously really encouraging. You have the leadoff double to Tommy Edman. He does not allow another runner into scoring position in his 7 innings of work. Only allows 1 hit, 1 walk, strikes out 9. And I said it to you before we started recording. To me, and I wrote this in the game story that's on Crossing Broad this morning, it's not about the what for me. It's not the 7 innings of shutout baseball. Like that, certainly that's great, and that's why we all feel good. But it's the how. It's how he did it. And let's look at this in 2 different ways. His fastball yesterday was good. He finished a lot of at-bats yesterday with his fastball. But when you look at the velocity, he averaged 92.7 miles per hour with it. He topped out at about 94. His season average, four-seam fastball velocity, 92.7. It's not like he was throwing the ball significantly harder yesterday, but there were 2 things that really jumped out. One, it was the location and his ability to play it off the breaking ball, which was outstanding. And then I thought more importantly, he trusted it and he went to it. He threw his fastball yesterday 51% of the time. This season, he's only done it 28% of the time. Like he said, hey, I got to trust it today. And I think off that curveball, it just played so much better. And when I look at the picks, Mitch, I look at the confidence, I look at the location, I say, all right, like this is something that maybe he can build off of here now for the first time, really try to gain some momentum this season.
Yeah, it was really, he pitched backwards for himself. I mean, most pitchers, go fastball as their lead pitch and then their breaking stuff comes behind it. But Nola is one of those guys who, as you pointed out, spreads it around. Like his pitches he uses them all pretty evenly, right? I mean, for the most part. And like you said, fastballs, he has not been throwing as many of them. And you could tell when you strike out, what was it? 7 of the 9 batters were struck out on fastballs, instead of the breaking stuff. And it like early, I mean, I think it was the first strikeout he had. Who was that number 2 hitter yesterday for the Cardinals?
You're the one that writes down the whole.
You know what I mean? I gotta pull out the whole thing.
Like it's 1982.
Yes, I keep score for every game, and I can't. And then I forget what that. Burleson was the guy. Was their number 2 hitter. His first strikeout. It was like almost like he threw curveball, and it was like, oh man, he's not. He was like looking for a fastball to swing at, and he was just beating him with the curveball. But other than that, those guys were looking for the rest of that lineup was looking for curveballs, and he would just sneak that little, 4-seam fastball right over the corner of the plate and strike them out looking. It was impressive. Like that was, and I got to give credit to Real Muto on that. A lot of times we talk about Real Muto and how he calls games and things, but when you call a game that way and you have a lineup figured out and you know that you got them looking for something that they're not going to get, that's really good preparation, really good work. And Nola trusting. I mean, Nola's on that same page too. He's a cerebral guy. We heard Stubbs talk about that when we had him on here about a month and a half ago or 2 months ago now. But yeah, so good credit to both of them. But yeah, they really pitched it backwards, and it brought some success. And I wonder if he could do that going forward.
What's interesting now is this. So he struggles in the first inning against the Giants last Monday. And then he goes and cruises those final 6 frames, and it's a good start. And then you see what he does yesterday. So that means that in his last 2 starts now, he's pitched 14 innings. He's allowed just 2, I'm sorry, what is it? 1 earned run, 2 earned runs? I guess
2 earned runs. 2 earned runs.
2 earned runs. For the month of August, 5 starts. He finishes with a 3.68 ERA. That's his second best month by ERA this season. It was 3.58 in April. But what's interesting about that is his first 3 starts of the month were dreadful. 15 plus innings pitched, allowed 10 earned runs. And so you see what he's been able to do these last 2 starts. It's the first time all season. He's made 27 starts this year. It's the first time all season that he has allowed less than 3 combined earned runs across 2 starts. Like, that's amazing to me that up until this point, he had not been able to put together consecutive starts in which he allowed less than 3 earned runs. He finally did that yesterday as we near September. And that kind of begs the question because, and it's been the theme of this show here for the last 2 weeks, it's felt like, as they're kind of treading water. It's, hey, what about October? What can we take from what's happening right now and apply it looking forward? And I'm not as bullish on the Phillies recapturing Red October and recapturing that magic because I don't feel as good about Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola as that 1-2 like I did a year ago. Well, guess what? The Zach Wheeler I saw on Saturday night was as good as it gets. And I think he's been generally pretty good this year in fairness to him. I feel good every time he takes the ball. But the Aaron Nola that I've seen now this week in 2 starts, I don't know. Maybe we're going to see him blow up again this weekend in Milwaukee. Maybe that happens and we're all frustrated all over again. And we say, like, I just can't do it. But if you get that guy or some semblance of that guy that we've been waiting to see, then when you talk about October and beating an Atlanta or beating a Los Angeles or being able to pitch with a team like Milwaukee, I can buy it. And it's not just about, they did it last year and they have to feel confident and the crowd's really good. Like, we're talking about, like, no, forget all that. Like, you can just hand the ball to Wheeler, Nola, and they can win a series for you effectively. And that really changes the math on what this team could do 6 weeks from now.
Certainly does. It certainly does, Bob. And that's the thing. I mean, if those 2 guys are their normal selves, they can beat any team in baseball in a playoff series. Any team. They could beat the Braves. I mean, you need, without Wheeler and Nola being Wheeler and Nola, you're not beating the Braves. So let's just be blunt about it, right? They need those guys to be what we saw this weekend. And again, you don't need to be that dominant and be great if you are, but they need to be those kinds of pitchers if you want to beat Atlanta. And you're going to face Atlanta. If you want to go back to the World Series, you're going to face the Braves. You need those guys to beat Atlanta. And if you do that, which that would be first, you're also going to need those guys to beat the Dodgers, who are playing great baseball right now as well. So to get to the World Series, you're going to have to go through 2 very good teams. There's going to be somebody else first. We don't know who, because the rest of the wild card race is insanity right now. But if you're going to get there, you need those Wheeler and Nola to pitch like you expect them to pitch by their names against Atlanta and the Dodgers. And in order to do that, they have to pitch like they did the last 2 nights.
So I want to talk a little bit, I guess, about that statistical oddity that we had seen here during this homestand up until yesterday, and it actually started down in Washington last weekend. But Phillies' first pitch yesterday, Kyle Schwarber, 436 feet out to center field, 1-0. Great. It's the first time in 9 games they scored first. And certainly they had been able to overcome that against the Giants and in the first 2 games against the Cardinals. But, like, do you think, like, we've sort of applauded this ability to erase deficits? I think, what did you say? 13 in a row
14.
they had trailed? 14 in a row?
Yeah, 14 in a row. They had trailed. They had
been
trailed
able to win more than they had lost, and so we say credit to them for being resilient and not letting early deficits or deficits at any point in the game even really deter them. But yesterday it was nice to see them get out early and hold a lead, and on this little 8-game run where the opponent had scored first, the Phillies had still managed to put together a 5-3 record. Overall, though, and as you move forward. And this is kind of like one of those minor annoyances with the pitching staff, and where you just felt like, damn, come on, guys. Like, They are this season 45-17 when they score first now after winning yesterday. Do you take anything at all from this? Like sometimes we look at the game notes like that the team supplies, or you watch every game and you start to notice like little weird trends. And so you dig in and you do your homework and say, that's bizarre. Like, was that all this was? Or like, do you really think that there is some type of meaning that can be extracted from this?
Well, it's a good question because we talked to Rob about it, right? I mean, I asked him the question on Friday night. I mean, I felt it was the last question of the press conference because, they win the game Friday. It was a pretty good win. Sanchez pitched great. And, everybody was talking about the offense and this and that. And Rob gave me he gave me the window because he mentioned the fact that they had been giving up runs early in games. And I said to him, I said, well, Rob, this keeps happening, and that at the time it was only 12 games in a row that they had trailed. And so I asked him about it, and he said, I think it's just one of those things that we're just kind of going through right now. I don't think it's he didn't think it's a chronic problem that's going to be an issue. But I do think that there is real value to scoring first, especially when you have good pitching, right? I mean, if you have starters you can rely on and a strong bullpen, if you get an early lead, even if it's 1-0, there's a reason you're 45-17 when you score first. I mean, that's a very good percentage of games you're going to win, and it's because you have good pitching. So if you have that, if you trust your pitching, which it seems like the Phillies do for the most part, then yeah, getting an early lead is important. But it falls on that pitching staff to ensure that the other team's not getting the lead first, right? So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship there. So yes, you don't want those guys. But the one thing I wrote about this on after Friday night's game, because the answer that that Rob gave and then also talking to Stubbs afterwards, the Phillies are really good at seeing what another lineup is doing early and then adjusting. So that this is the thing we keep talking about. Okay, so they give up the runner in a first inning, or they give up 2 runs early, and then they're able to come back and win. We applaud their resilience, right, and all that stuff. But in order to be that resilient offense, it requires the pitchers to figure out, all right, what the hell went wrong, and let's stabilize it, make sure it doesn't keep going wrong. And so that, from what it sounds like they identify a few things right away and make changes to their game plan or adjust to what the hitters are looking to do. And then we find that, if you go back and see that story, I did a thing, it was like they were averaging giving up, I think it was 0.8. If I don't have the story up in front of me, it was something like 0.8 runs in first innings in the last 2 weeks, and then 0.4 or something like that for every inning thereafter. And so it's like they figure something out and they prevent it from snowballing, okay? For the most part. Yes, they lose some of those games. Last Sunday in Little League Classic against Washington is case in point. You get behind 4-0 in the first inning. The final score is 4-3. They don't give up another run after the first inning, but it still wasn't. They didn't do enough to get back, right? So that's an example of, okay, you probably let it go too far. But at the same time, just think of the performance that Wheeler gave you after those first 5 hitters. He was dominant. So they find things and they're able to figure out what they want to do. You just don't want it to be too prevalent that the other team is jumping out to those leads. You want to be the team that gets out in front.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I kind of actually, I want to take a closer look at the offense here. Let me open the conversation by asking you a very simple and direct question, which is the total opposite of what I typically do.
Okay.
Do the Phillies have a good offense?
Good, yes. Great, no. They're good. It's a good offense. I mean, you look at what they do and you say, yeah, that's a good offense. If you're top 10, well, I think they're 11th, right? You said they're approaching the top 10 in runs scored per game. Then you're a good offense. You're good. You're just good, though.
What's been really interesting, we've made a lot about the home run surge in August, but I want to put a little context behind this, and not just that this is more home runs than any Phillies team has ever hit in a single month ever. Like, that's a great stat and certainly illustrates how good they've been. But if you look at where they've moved, like, we've talked so much this season about this team just doesn't hit enough home runs, and that's why they can't consistently score. On August 1st, they were 21st in baseball in home runs per game, 1.07 home runs per game. Right now, this morning, they're 13th in baseball with 1.25 home runs per game. They moved from 21st to 13th in 1 month. Like this late in the season, it's not May. Like to make that type of jump this late in the year where they could potentially be a top 10 team in terms of home runs hit, like that is a massive jump. And if you go, okay, cool, like that's good stat, I guess. Like here's one more though. On August 1st, the Phillies were 14th in slugging percentage as a team. This morning, they're 6th. They've moved from 14th to 6th in baseball in slugging. Again, like that is a massive surge in a 27-day span. And it's a testament to just how good they've been this month. And we talk about the inability to really capitalize on a soft schedule. I would say that after this sweep and after a 5-1 start to this homestand, if they can win this series against the Angels, I think that you're going to look at the total record and say, like, listen, yeah, like, did they go 14 games over 500 in August? No, but like they reasonably did what they were supposed to do. Like, we're not that far off anymore after what they've done this week. And I think it shows you that they took advantage of some bad pitching, which is exactly what we've been asking them to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're 6th in the baseball in OPS, tied for 5th in OPS plus. And you kind of, look at that and say, as this, everybody always talks about that they're a feast or famine offense, that they're really, really inconsistent. And they at times they have been. But I think if you watched any team with regularity, you would find the same thing. When you're a top 5 offensive team, looking at your OPS and adjusting it to where your games are being played in all the ballparks and whatever. And the only teams you are looking up at the moment are the Braves, the Dodgers, the Texas Rangers, and Tampa. And really, when you look at it, Texas and Tampa got off the furious starts and have maybe come back to the pack a little bit. So like those numbers might be a little bit front loaded. You're really looking at best offenses currently in baseball: Atlanta Braves, Los Angeles Dodgers, Philadelphia Phillies, and that's. Mariners are probably right in there too, the way that they've been playing. That's it. I mean, they're in that upper echelon. They're good. They still, in my mind, need to show me a little bit more consistency than just the past month. And don't forget, in this month, there was a 3-game stretch where they scored 3 runs, right?
Yeah.
I think that it was an ugly stretch of games of those 3 games. So really, if you take those 3 out, how good has the month been? Like, it's been probably even better. So yeah, but they're getting there. They're getting to where they need to be. If we have this conversation, Bob, in 2-3 weeks, I might say to you, oh, they're a very good offense. Like they're top of the sport offense behind Atlanta kind of thing. Right now, in my mind, they're good, and there's still room for them to get even better.
So we're kind of talking about the whole here. And to me, it's interesting. You look at some of the individual parts because we've spent a lot of the season talking about, hey, this guy just isn't what we're accustomed to seeing. He's not doing what we expect. The big money guys, they're not kind of living up to expectations. It's weird though. Like you talk about like letting the 162 play out and then sort of assess where ultimately everything sort of shakes out. And it's pretty interesting looking at individuals here. Like Nick Castellanos is, and we're talking about him at the game yesterday. We're both down there, both covering it. He puts together a game where he looks terrible. He looks terrible for 3 at bats, and then he singles or it's a double into the gap or homers. Like you'd like to see more consistency in the way each at bat looks, but overall he's sort of like leveled off, and you feel like he's going to finish somewhere between 275, 280. He's on pace for 27 home runs, 40 doubles, 102 runs batted in. Like that's a pretty good season from Nick Castellanos. Kyle Schwarber. Is he going to hit 200? He might, he could, maybe he's short of that, but you're still looking at a guy that's pacing for 45 home runs, 125 walks, and 105 runs batted in. Like it's a pretty good season. Stott's on pace for 50 extra base hits, 16 homers, 34 doubles. He's hitting 296. I'll finish here. Alec Boehm on pace for 17 homers, 98 runs batted in, 46 extra base hits. Harper, Gets off to this slow start. The power's not there. What's wrong with Bryce Harper? Dude, he's on pace for 45 extra base hits at the end of the season, 15 homers, 30 doubles. And if you really just go off the pace that he's put together these last 2 weeks, it's like not absurd to say that he might finish with like 18 home runs this season when we were talking about how it might be a struggle for him to get to 10 at one point.
Yeah,
I mean,
his OPS plus at this so far this season is 140.
Yeah, he's hitting 306 with an 878 OPS, and like that thing is on the upward trend right now.
Yeah.
He's putting together this mini monster year. Turner, even, we know how bad he's been for the most of the season, but in August, 302, he has an 881 OPS. And then the last guy is the one guy that I think people just don't really feel good about right now. That's JT Realmuto. And it's like interesting. I've made this point in the past. Like his at bat to end the game Wednesday against the Giants, or not end the game, but in the ninth inning with the winning run 90 feet away in the bottom of the ninth. Like it was so bad. It was such a bad at bat. And he's been so bad at home all year. The home road split is just unbelievable. But he still has a 765 OPS. He's hitting 250. Yeah. He might hit 20 home runs this season. Like not bad for a catcher that just takes a beating day after day after day. Like I don't feel great about where he's at. I have been underwhelmed by him in general, but like it's not like he's been a disaster either.
No, he hasn't been a disaster. He's just been a little bit disappointing. And, you know, he had a slow start in 22, but then once Harper got beamed on the wrist and had to miss all that time with that broken hand or whatever it was, hand, thumb, I forget what it was. Realmuto took off. It was like really the team MVP from that point forward for the rest of the regular season. And so I think a lot of people thought when he got off to a slow start again in 23 that, oh, well, he gets good later in the year. He'll figure it out. He'll turn it around. And he's had some moments. He's had some games where you're like, that's a heck of a game by JT, but it never really has clicked with any kind of consistency. And so I think that's probably why people would like to see a little bit more out of Realmuto. But again, I mean, just compare him to other catchers in baseball. Where's he at?
Well, in fairness to him, too, this is his best month of the season. He's hitting 288 in August. He has an 813 OPS in August.
Yeah.
And, like, I just want to call this out. And I think that maybe they've talked about this on the telecast. Maybe it's come up on the radio. But his home road split, like, here you go. At Citizens Bank Park this season, he's hitting 198 with a 594 OPS. On the road, he's hitting 302 with a 931 OPS.
It's
like,
wild.
How do you make sense of that?
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. But so I think when you look at all these individual parts, like we're at a point in the season right now, and talk to me on Friday, maybe things go south against a bad Angels team and they lose 2 out of 3, and then they kind of have a pretty good homestand, not a great one. Like maybe we're going to have a different opinion in 4 days, but you start to look at each individual part and you feel pretty good about all of them right now, mostly. And then you look at these numbers and the way that they've been able to move offensively over the last month or so. And yeah, I kind of come back to where you're at. Is this a great offense? No. Is it a good offense? Yeah. And like, is it a good enough offense to beat you in October if you get the type of starting pitching that we're talking about between Nola and Wheeler? Yeah. And so,
yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just smiling and agreeing with you because it's nice to see that you're seeing things the same way that I see them.
So that does like, and here we are, like I'm pissing positive all over this show. Let me ask you this question then. Like if a month from now, and this is a huge if, and it's a stupid if because we know how baseball is, but if we're sitting here on, let's say, September 28th, and we reasonably feel the same way we feel right now, like, wow, like they've been better, and I feel good about these things. What's the one thing between now and the end of the season that you would like to see? Like, I guess the way I'm asking this is like, we all feel pretty good right now. We feel like they have a puncher's chance against the Goliaths of the National League. Okay. What's the one thing that has to kind of happen for you to go, not only do I feel good about this, but like I fully convinced myself that they can take one of these teams down, and not can, but will.
Yeah. So there's actually, you say one thing. I think there's a few things, Bob, in all honesty, that I want to see. One, I want to see Nola continue to do what he's done the last two starts. Like, again, doesn't have to be 7 shutout innings, but keep the ball in the yard. Don't have blow up innings. Really have command of the strike zone. That's the other thing. This year he's been walking guys at a higher rate than he did the last couple seasons. Really hasn't done that in the last 2 starts, right? I mean, he's really done a good job of keeping guys off the base. So that's what I want to see first and foremost. I want to see Craig Kimbrell have a few good saves in a row. He had a save yesterday. Okay, fine, but it was preceded by a walk and a double. So those are kinds of things that you don't want to see happen. There was no need for the tying run to get to the plate in Nolan Arenado in the 9th inning of a 3-0 game yesterday, and yet it did.
That
So,
walk in the 9th inning drove me absolutely crazy. I looked at you, and what did I say? I'm like,
yeah.
We're not up there rooting or anything. We all know that, but I'm like, you can't fucking walk that guy. Like that was the gist of what I said. Like,
right. I mean, you put yourself in a situation where you're now facing Goldschmidt and Arenado, and if you have 2 all-star players get a hit off you, all of a sudden it's a different game, right? Yeah. It's a whole different game. So, yes. So that's the thing. Like, I want to see that again, like we talked about in the last episode. He's not been terrible, but he's also not been as dominant as he was earlier in the summer. So those 2 things I want to see. And then the third thing that I really want to see, Bob, is I really want to see them send a message to the Braves in the 7 games that they play them in September. I want to see them go. It doesn't matter what I'm not saying that they have to win 5 out of 7 or whatever to scare the hell out of the Braves. Whatever the outcome ends up being, I want them to be good games, hard games, well played games, and have the Braves thinking in the back of their head, this is the team we don't want to play. That's what I want them to do in September. Create that doubt in the minds of a baseball team that is blown the doors off of everybody they faced this year. You face them 7 times in September. You go 4-3 or 3-4. That's fine. But just make the Braves think twice. Like, this is a team that can get us.
What do you think the discourse in Atlanta is right now? Like Atlanta Sports Talk Radio, are they down there saying like, "Wow, we just have this great team and they've won a World Series. It's not like they've never done it before. We're going to blow the doors off the National League." Is it like a puff out the chest type thing down there, or are they kind of going like, that Phillies team is 14 games over 500. They're pretty good, and like they took it to us last year.
Yeah, I think that there's probably some people who are thinking that down there. I think there are probably some people who look at it and go, let's not overlook this team after what happened last year. But I do think that there's a mentality that this is a revenge tour from last year. Like they felt like last year they should have won and they didn't. And so like they've gone out and you look at every series that they've been in this year up to this point where it was, well, this is a good series. This is a good matchup. And they've basically crushed the opposition.
Yeah, like they lost last night. They were down early. They took the lead, and you figured, all right, they're going to sweep San Francisco. Like it's almost like surprising when they don't come back or they lose. Like they have been that good. And the one thing I'll say, like we've talked about, this is a team that has not had to play in a lot of meaningful games. They haven't had to feel the pressure, the must win, need a win, got to win a series, like. And that's a credit to them that they haven't had to do that. They've been that good. It's not like that they're running away in a division where there's no team that has played decent baseball. It's not like the Phillies are 2 games over 500 right now. It's a credit to them. It does remain to be seen whether or not that will ultimately come back to hurt them.
Yeah.
But I will say it is extraordinarily impressive that they have not had to play with that type of urgency or that type of anxiety, and they just keep winning anyway. Like, I guess in some way it can be easy to win when A, you're awesome, and B, you don't feel that pressure. But to be able to stay that locked in and continue to win series and continue to produce offensively at that level, like it would be easy. And they went through a little bit of a spell back post All-Star break where they were struggling a little bit. But by and large, they have avoided those stretches where they've just not played well at all. And like, they certainly seem dialed in to me, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but here's the one difference, Bob. Their pitching has not been as good as they would have hoped it would be. Strider's been good.
You know what though? Like, let me just say this. Like, I hear you, and I think you can make an argument that Strider might ultimately win the Cy Young. Like, I know we had that brief
Yeah,
back and forth about that. Their pitching this season, though, is third in baseball in ERA. Like, I hear
yeah.
you. I feel like that pitching's good. It's not scary, but it's good.
It's good, but it's third in ERA. But I think that it's third in ERA because they've been fortunate to get out of certain situations. I consistently, and that's credit to them that they can do that. But they give up a few more base runners than I think you think. I mean, Elder got off to a great start, and now he's kind of been falling back to the pack a little bit. Charlie Morton's ageless, right? Does a nice job, but he's a 5 inning guy on most nights. Yeah, if he gets you 6, great, but his whip is high.
Yeah, they're 12th in whip this season as a team. Like they
Yeah,
have
so
a worse whip than the Baltimore Orioles, who like as good as they've been. You're like, their pitching's kind of.
So there you go. I mean, you just said it. They're as a team, their whip is 12th, which is it's not terrible, but it's not great either. Right. And so that's what I'm saying. That's why I keep pointing out to if you have Wheeler and Nola pitching like they can, you can beat the Braves because they don't have the dominant ability to have dominant pitching on a nightly basis. Can they do it over a short series? Of course, they can be just as good as the Phillies pitchers in a 5-game series, and then maybe we're talking about a 3-game sweep, and it was an ugly series against the Braves. But at the same time, I look at it and say, there's nobody I look at on that roster that I say, oh, we don't want to face that guy coming out of the pen, or that starting pitcher is so dominant that they're going to be a problem for the Phillies. I don't see it. I don't see one guy. Maybe if Fried gets his act together, but he hasn't looked good since coming back from his injury. Like that's what I'm saying. Like there's nothing there that I go, oh man, their Phillies can't hit that guy. Oh right. Yeah, this is a hittable pitching staff.
I want to look ahead a little bit to this week, and you have an Angels team coming in here that has played pretty poor baseball in the second half, certainly since the trade deadline. They're within arm's reach of a wild card spot. They say, you know what, like let's go for it. It has not worked out. It's been a disaster, and there's a lot of reasons why, and certainly most recently Trout going back on the injured list. Shohei Ohtani obviously going to be shut down, probably won't throw a baseball in a competitive game until 2025, it looks like. One of the reasons, though, it has not gone well for the Angels is that Lucas Giolito has been a mess since arriving in Los Angeles. And in 5 starts with the Angels, he's 1-4. He has a 6.67 ERA. And over 27 innings pitched, he's allowed 29 hits. He's walked 11. And he's allowed 7 home runs. Like he has a 1.481 whip in 27 innings with the Angels. Now, to his credit, he had his best start with them last time out, 6 innings, 1 run allowed against the Reds, 9 strikeouts, only 1 walk. So he's coming into this start with some momentum, but he has been very disappointing. This Angels team, much like the Cardinals team, though they're a little bit closer in the standings, like they're done, and I think they know it. So what do you kind of expect here this week?
No, I think I said it on Friday. I'm going to stick with it. I mean, I expect the Phillies to, win this series handily. I mean, it's got to be 2 out of 3. If not, I think a sweep is certainly a realistic possibility. I mean, their most regular players are hurt. Like Trout, Taylor Ward, Matt Theis, the catcher, he's hurt. Rendon, but he's been a disaster. But he was their starting third baseman. Zach Neto is hurt. They're playing with a bunch of other guys. You got Ohtani still hitting, and then other bunch of everybody else's. I mean, Brandon Drury, I guess, is having an okay year. Whatever. That's it. Like, there's nothing on this team. And then when you look at the pitchers, like you said, I mean, you pointed out Giolito, but I mean, who else they got in that rotation, man?
Yeah, like, you're going to see Tyler Anderson, who's just a guy, 5.25, 5.35 ERA, and then you see Reed Detmers, who is just a guy, 3-10, 5.03 ERA. So Phillies have an opportunity here to take advantage.
I know he threw a no-hitter last year. That's great. Like, come on, man. And then if you get into their bullpen, like the only, who the only really good bullpen guy they have is Matt Moore. Yes, that Matt Moore who pitched for the Phillies,
very intimidating, Matt Moore.
right?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are pretty good, but not exactly a guy that you see him out there and you go, yeah. I mean, listen, the Phillies are going to counter with Walker tonight. I don't know what he's going to give you. I think like coming in, we've been talking about the odds a lot lately. The day of games, and Phillies are minus 149 right now. That's not what you'd necessarily expect for a team that's playing good baseball at home, 14 games over against a team that's dead. Dead men walking basically. But again, like I think that a lot of that has to do with the uncertainty of Taijuan Walker. You just don't know. Like I guess he was better against the Giants, 5 innings, 3 runs, tough start, got out of it, was okay, gave up a couple in the middle of the game. Like I just don't know what he gives you right now. But you would expect that the Phillies, even with Giolito having some ceiling, like you'd expect them to be able to get a win tonight. One thing that the Phillies do have a little bit of an annoying habit of doing is not stringing together wins. So like they come off a sweep. Can they kind of keep their foot on the gas now coming into tonight? We'll see. But yeah, I mean, when you look at the way the series, like forget the individual games, when you look at how the series shakes out, I would imagine that they're going to go Lorenzen. Yeah, he is the scheduled starter for Tuesday. And then I guess it'll be Sanchez, though it's not yet announced, on Wednesday. Like this is a series the Phillies should win. Should they sweep them coming off of a sweep? I don't know. Like that might be asking a lot. Ohtani pops a 2 home run game in there and you lose. Like, I don't think that that's unreasonable. But again, like this should be an opportunity to finish this homestand 7-2 and with maybe a shot at 8-1. So been asking the Phillies to make a move here with September, presenting some challenges. And I think that those challenges begin this weekend against a Brewers team that is very hot right now. Beat the Phillies in a series at Citizens Bank Park previously. Man, do they pitch? Man, does that bullpen close the door? So it's not going to just be, I don't think, cruise control here on out. So again, like this is an opportunity to take advantage of a vulnerable opponent, and hopefully they do it.
Yeah, you mean you're not worried about the Mick coming in here and ripping things up against the Phils?
Yeah, well, listen, he's hitting 3 something in his last 7 games, even though he's hitting like 180 in his last 17 games. So he must be on a hot streak right now. I actually pulled up his numbers here.
It was only because he went 3 for 4 in the first game of that doubleheader against the Reds. That was it. Yeah. I mean, other than that, he's had 1 for 4, 1 for 4, 1 for 4, something.
Yeah, like I believe he's coming off a 2 for 12 weekend in New York. So yeah. I'm telling you, he's good for a home run this week, though. He's going to get them once. I can feel it in my bones. I think he's going to get Lorenzen tomorrow. That's my bold call. And we'll see. I mean, like in all honesty, like just getting back to the Phillies here real quick. Like I do want to see Taijuan Walker come out and be a little bit better, a little sharper. Like, hey man, is it that much to ask that you get through the first inning of a game and not turn it into a raging dumpster fire? Like come on, figure it out. Michael Lorenzen, like we talked about this on Friday. I can't kill him off of a 10-day break following a no-hitter. He's still on a little bit of a weird schedule that next start. Like this third one out post no-hitter though, like let's get back to being a guy that you can kind of count on as a middle of the rotation piece. Even if the innings aren't going to be there in September, like maybe like we talked yesterday, like a potential piggyback situation between him and Sanchez, try to lower the workload here. Like, I don't know, but like, I'd like to see a little bit more than what we've seen from him the last 2 times out for sure. So, there's still always some boxes to check here, man.
Yeah. Oh, and you think Moniak's going to hit a home run off of him?
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying he's going to have a blow up start tomorrow, but I just think that Moniak gets the Phillies for 1 this week.
Yeah. Okay.
And
his
then
last
the other 9 at bats.
His last 91 at bats, he struck out 43 times.
How many times has he walked? Do you have that there?
3.
3.
His last 25 games, 165, 192, 264 slash line, 455 OPS. Stay hot, Nick. Stay hot.
How do you walk 3 times? Like in 90, you say 40? How many strikeouts?
43 strikeouts in 91 at bats. So it's 94 plate appearances. So 91 at bats.
He's absolutely going to hit a home run this week because this isn't cool. Like we're just piling on this guy for no reason. I know he was just on think that he was on High Hopes. I did not listen to that, but
Oh, was he really?
yeah, they had their guy on, so their guy, Nick Moniak.
That's funny. I didn't know that he was on.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that pretty much hit on Philly stuff, but
well, I know, but I have one thing that I want to do. It's kind of
okay.
related to Phillies before we get to one last thing. And look, we at Crossing Broad, one of the things that we write about, and it's mostly Kincaid that does it, but is we write about local media, right? I mean, we talk about the local media, and we have done this, Bob, for a long time, right? It's one of the things that Kyle Scott started when he started the website, was writing about the media, and because people are interested in it. And especially, Radio Wars. Some of our best posts of all time, most read posts, have been Radio Wars articles. And I don't usually take the time to come on here or on Snow the Goalie or any podcast really and start ripping local radio, because I listen to it just like everybody else does, right? So I'm just as guilty if I have it on in the car all the time. But I feel like sometimes, people get their opinions shaped in this city by what is said on the radio, and that's not a surprise. I mean, that's always kind of been the case, that they're considered a place to get information and a place to talk about things and hear opinions. But the last couple of days, I've been a little annoyed with WIP. And here's what my annoyances are. And it's mostly yesterday, I guess. It happened twice yesterday. And one of them I didn't really address until this morning, but I wanted to wait until Monday when you can call into his show. But so it starts off yesterday morning. Joe Giglio puts a tweet out, and he's comparing Zach Wheeler to Roy Halladay's first 95 starts as a Philly. And their numbers, if you look at those 95 starts, are pretty close, pretty identical. I mean, really, really close. But what Joe does not share in that tweet is the fact that includes all of the 2012 Roy Halladay season, which was a bad one, and the first part of the 2013 season, which was when he retired. And that they were, it was his decline. It was his injury-riddled seasons. And so those bad starts, probably, I think it was 30 of them, right? 30 of those 95 starts were so bad that it pulled his numbers even with Wheeler. And that's not to knock Wheeler. Wheeler's been very, very good as a Philly. But by putting that tweet out, you're now putting an expectation on this fan base that Zach Wheeler is going to be pitching like Roy Halladay. And that's unfair to Zach Wheeler. So I have a problem with that. That's the first one. And let me give you the other one. I'll give you real quick, and then you can kind of respond. On the way home from the game last night, Tom Kelly's doing the post-game show. He's doing final
I know what this is going to be.
He's doing final out of the post-game show. Is this
going to be about the player of the game?
Pick the player of the game. Nola pitches 7 innings, 1 hitter, 9 strikeouts. He gave the player of the game to Kyle Schwarber for a leadoff home run, and then defended it for the entirety of his show. Now, I can't believe he honestly believes that. I think that has to be, it's Sunday afternoon, and I want to generate phone calls into this radio show, and then people are going to call and tell me he's an idiot, and he's okay with that, and that's fine. But the reality is there are people who listen to that who go, oh, well, maybe the start wasn't that good by Nola. And I have a problem with that. Shaping those opinions.
All right, here I go. So first of all, I'll take the second point first. If you listened to that yesterday, and because Tom Kelly didn't give Aaron Nola player of the game post-game show, like if you think he didn't have a good start because of that, like then you're an idiot. Like, right? Like that's on you. Like how stupid can you be? But here's the thing. If you listen to these guys consistently, you kind of know that it's a bit. Like for Tom Kelly, like he does every time Aaron Nola struggles, he does the Twitter hashtag fake ace. Like that's his thing. So yes, I think he knows that Aaron Nola was the player of the game. And yes, it was kind of playing into that bit. His producer, I don't know his name. It might have been Earnshaw. I don't know.
Yeah, it was Nick Earnshaw, yeah.
And he was like, come on, man. Like that's absolutely ridiculous. So at least you have like the dissenting opinion on the show to call out the insanity of what he was doing. But like,
that's correct.
Yeah, I do definitely think there was like a tongue-in-cheek element to that.
Could have well been. Could have well been.
That being said, we'll go to Giglio now. Like, and we know, like I've said it before, maybe you and I disagree on this a little bit. I know that people online really get after Joe for the takes. I used to be a frequent guest on Joe's show. I appreciated that. Maybe I even look at him more favorably than I should because he gave me a platform. Full disclosure, right? That being said, I will tell you that sometimes I listen to that show with Joe and Hugh Douglas, and I'm like, of course, this is today's opinion. Like, of course, this is the way that we're going to go. Like, no surprise here. It's always like that devil's advocate, let me get a reaction type thing. And sometimes I think Joe means it. And sometimes I wonder if things get stretched out in a way that you're trying to bait. When I look at this particular tweet, though, like, I guess I don't see it to be quite as egregious as you do, in that, like, first 95 starts with the Phillies. He lays out Zach Wheeler's numbers. He lays out Roy Halladay's numbers. And I get your complaint in that in a lot of ways he's saying, well, Zach Wheeler, like if without any further explanation, you're basically saying Zach Wheeler is Roy Halladay, and thus therefore you must expect Zach Wheeler to be Roy Halladay. But like, when you just look at the overall value of what these guys have been, like, I think Joe's, I can't speak for him, but like, I think the intention here is to be like, Zach Wheeler has been really damn good. And is comparing him to Roy Halladay the way to do that? Like, probably not, but like those 95 starts, whether or not like Halladay's 2012 and 2013 numbers were part of it, like that happened. So like from a longevity standpoint, like I could make an argument that maybe Zach Wheeler is going to be more valuable at the end of this entire deal than Roy Halladay was for those 2 years, because Halladay wasn't very good beyond 2011. Like, so in totality, like could we have a debate whether Zach Wheeler was a better contract than Roy Halladay? Like, I know that almost seems blasphemous, but like maybe.
Well, that's a different conversation.
Sure.
If you want to talk about the contract, that's a whole different conversation. And I think that is a nuanced approach and a fair discourse that you could take on that. And I think it's a good argument. And I think you can make that argument. But if you want to compare pitchers, I don't care. You say first 95 starts as, with a team. Well, you have to understand where those pitchers are in their careers with that team.
Sure.
If you want to compare Zach Wheeler's 95 starts with the Phillies, compare them to 95 starts with Roy Halladay at the same time in his career, regardless if he was with the Blue Jays or the Phillies, doesn't matter. Compare them at the same time. And then when you see that the numbers are not even close, then it's like, oh, okay, Zach Wheeler's really good, but he's not Hall of Famer Doc Halladay.
Right. Well, again, I mean, to your point, if you take Wheeler's numbers as when he's 35 and 36 years old, which is when Halladay's 2012 and 2013 seasons occurred,
yeah,
hey, it might be a different story. But like, again, I hear you, and like to try to frame statistics in a way that make Zach Wheeler look like Roy Halladay, peak Roy Halladay is incorrect.
Yes.
Maybe among other things, incorrect. But yeah, like when you look at the total value of what he's been, I mean, I think
there's no doubt.
There's like a way to contextualize that and say, like, dude, this guy has been unbelievable.
Then do it. Then contextualize it. Yeah. Right. You know what I'm saying? I have no problem with, you want to contextualize it, then do so. But don't just put it out there and have no other response and leave it to the fans to figure out what the heck you're saying, because the majority of the people in this city will think you're comparing Zach Wheeler to Roy Halladay. And there are a lot of fans, Bob, and we see them on social media all the time because they come at us, who say that, the things that they say are based off of things they hear on WIP. And so therefore they're letting their opinions be formulated by these talking points that are on talk radio that I don't think are fair to the players. That's all I'm saying. Just if Joe wants to extend that and contextualize it like you just did for him, then I have zero argument with the tweet. Zero. None. But just put it out there and leave it there. What do you think that the public's going to take out of it?
Yeah.
They're going to respond the same way I did.
Yeah. What was the I saw the tweet, but I didn't go into the replies or the quote tweets or any of that stuff. Like, were people pushing back against that pretty heavily?
Of course they did. Of course they did. I mean, you got a couple people who said, "Hey, Zach, great season," or you've been great for Zach, of course. But and I don't doubt that. I don't disagree with that. It's just that most people are looking at it like, dude, you cannot cherry pick these stats and just leave it at the cherry pick stats.
Is
You want
that
to
the
use them,
best?
use them.
Is that the best Phillies free agent contract in the last? I don't know. Let's go back to 2000. I mean, I guess Cliff Lee is the other one.
Maybe
Harper.
Bryce Harper.
I guess the value of Harper. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the value of Harper at this point too, with the dollar amount, like that deal every day gets more ridiculous. You know, I mean, I guess Bryce is definitely the obvious one.
Yeah, Harper, but I mean, it's close. Other than Harper, you take Harper out of it, is it the next best one? It's close.
They're going to have quite a decision on their hands this offseason with not just Nola, but now beyond that, because I think Nola, they're different timelines. Wheeler has the additional year, but like there's math that's involved here. Like you say, like, well, we have Zach. Do we want to do Zach after next year? Or do we want to find an extension with Zach? Maybe because of that, we're not going to go as heavy on Aaron. Like I am very, very,
it's going to be intriguing.
There's so much to figure out here between now and this season. Like there's so many things to talk about and focus on, but man, like what a decision. There's a way that decision could like totally alter the future of this organization.
And I'll say this, Bob, you know what, they cut off the talks for signing Nola back in beginning of spring training. If they knew then that Andrew Painter was going to need Tommy John surgery and not pitch until 2025, would the Phillies have signed Nola then?
Well, if Aaron Nola knew that he was going to spend most of this season being looked at as an overwhelming disappointment, would he have signed that?
Right, that same thing, right? Both sides.
There's a lot of if to this, and it's going to be interesting because then what happens if, like, even if you just play this out, and I think it all comes down to the postseason, right? Like it's going to be what happens in the playoffs. If he bombs, he could be awesome the next 5-6 weeks, and if he bombs in the playoffs, people are going to be out. And he can continue to sort of be up and down over the next 6 weeks. But if he figures it out in the postseason, people are going to say, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
But like, there's so much at stake for him. And I know that there's some team that is going to look at him and look at the track record and look at the innings pitched and see that he's had starts this season like he's had the last 2 times out, like he had against the Astros back in late April, against the Rays in July. Like someone's going to pay him. And we've said that all along.
Yeah.
But is someone willing to get crazy? Like, there's so much at stake for this player over the next 6, 7, 8 weeks, depending how deep this postseason run goes, assuming they get there. Like it is going to be truly compelling to watch that unfold.
Yeah, it is. One last thing, and then we can wrap this up. Did you see Brandon Lau, the interview after what happened with the Yankees yesterday?
No, because as you know, I only pay attention to the Phillies. I know that they got into a little brouhaha or whatever yesterday, and everyone hates the Yankees. What happened?
So there was I guess Rosarena got hit by a pitch, and it was like the 12th time this year that the Yankees have hit a Rays batter, and so there was a lot of bad blood back and forth. And on the post game, this is the Rays TV broadcast. On the post game, they're asking Brandon Lau about it. And his response was, they're a last place team playing against a team that's in contention. It's not worth our time. We need each game. They're not really into each game. I was like, how do you say it? You're just like, screw those guys.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an organization that if they were, I don't know, the Orioles, like I don't think you take those shots, but man, when they are down, it is fun to watch them be down.
It's a riot, man.
What a miserable organization that is. Like, and has been now for almost 13 years.
Yeah.
I mean, like they've made the playoffs. They've had some moments. They've had some big time free agent signings, and Garrett Cole, and certainly Aaron Judge had a magical season last year. Like, there's been some good there, but like when you are that team and you're the Yankees and you spend the way they spend, and every year is make or break, boom or bust, it's been like a really weird, because they haven't really been legit. Like, there's probably been like without really thinking about it, there's probably been 1 or 2 years in there where you felt like maybe they were going to get to the World Series. But watching postseasons, sort of evolve with them, like you've never felt like, oh damn, like watch out for this team. They've just kind of been there, and
Yeah, I mean, even like last year, like we knew that they weren't going to beat
Yeah,
Houston.
like last year they were in the way. I remember we were getting ready for, it might have been game 4 against the Padres, or no, which series was it? Was it the Padres when the Yankees were still in? Were they still in last year at that
they
point?
lost to the Astros.
Yeah, and the Astros
right?
just blew them away. It was like a waste of time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I remember watching it on the screen, and we were like talking to each other, like they have no shot.
Yeah, none. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. So yeah, it's just fun to kind of to shit all over New York baseball this year. It just really is fun to do that.
Yes, I don't hate it. So let's see. Maybe the Jets and Giants will get it going for the final New York this season.
There you go. Exactly.
All right. Well, that'll do it for the latest episode of Crossed Up. I enjoyed this one, Anthony, and we will be back on Friday. And you can follow the show account at Up Phillies on Twitter. You can follow Anthony at AntSanPhilly. You can follow me at Bob_Wankel. Make sure that you check us out anywhere you get your podcast. You can also view the show on YouTube, and we will talk to you on Friday.